Hello, hello. What an honor, what a privilege to spend a few moments with you and have a conversation about what we can accomplish with hypnosis, with hypnotherapy. I've been doing this job professionally for 25 years. I've worked with over 12,000 private clients one on one, a number of groups, and I've certified over 3,000 students. So I've been around, conferences, I presented, I've written books. In other words, I've been around the field of hypnotherapy for quite some time, enough to learn a few things about it and be able to share with you some of the things that we can accomplish and perhaps some of the things that we cannot accomplish through hypnotherapy. Doesn't mean that you cannot accomplish it, but it just means that hypnotherapy would not be the best venue for you to accomplish certain things. So let's first of all separate what we can do from what we cannot do through hypnotherapy. And of course, as you can well imagine, being a philosopher, I spent years thinking about this question: what can we do, what can we not do, and separate those two in the simplest way possible. So I'll tell you, the things that we can do with hypnosis or hypnotherapy are two. In other words, are a bunch of things that satisfy two criteria, only two criteria. Number one, it has to do with you. And number two, you want to change. Let's parse this out because this is really, really important. It has to do with you and two things, and you want to change. So let me give you an example of what would not work. I come to you, you're my hypnotherapist, and I tell you, I want to end world hunger. And you ask me, okay, does it have to do with you? Are you creating world hunger? Are you holding on to the food supply to the degree that other people are going hungry? No, I'm not. Does it have to do with you? No. Are you in charge of the world food supply? No. But what do you want to do? I want to end it. Well, but it has nothing to do with me. I mean, I'm a very small piece of that whole world hunger problem. So yes, I can pray about it, whatever, I can feed my neighbor, but that's about it, right? So when it comes to the world stage, it would be fair to say that it has nothing to do with me. So let me give you an example. A person comes to me and says, okay, I saw your video. I realized that I need to want to change in order to change, and I want to end homelessness. And I say, okay, that's very noble of you. Are you creating homelessness? No, I'm not. Are you the one in charge of the housing supply in the world? No, I'm not. Are you the one who holds the key to homelessness? Can you just, no, I'm not. What do you have to do with homelessness? Nothing. I just want to change it. Okay, that we cannot do because it has nothing to do with you. Maybe you can house your friend for a few weeks on your couch, and that would be very noble. But we cannot, the world homelessness issue really isn't something that you are responsible for. So we're not going to, doing a few sessions of hypnotherapy will not make that go away. I think that's quite obvious. So you want to, but it's not about you or has nothing to do with you, or you're not the cause of the problem. So no, we cannot do that with hypnotherapy. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot be very effective in that problem, but you have to go through a different venue. Maybe you have to study international economics. Maybe you have to go work in Washington. I don't know. You see, it becomes a different type of, you have to seek different forms of solutions because it's the kind of problem that won't respond to a few sessions of hypnotherapy. Now, notice if you tell me, I want to work on the world hunger problem, and sometimes I feel demotivated, I feel tired, I feel stressed out. And I know that if I change my mindset, I can work more hours and eventually solve this problem. So, what is it that you really want to change? I really want to change my mindset so that I'm not so stressed out, so that I can work on this problem. Yes, that we can do because that has to do with you. That's your mindset. But if you say, well, what I actually want to is to end world hunger, say that's not a hypnotherapy issue. All right, I think you got that. Let's go to the other branch of the argument. Let's say a person, let's say has everything to do with the person, but they don't want to change. I'll give you a typical example. Person smokes cigarettes, and you go right up to them and you tell them, you should quit smoking because it's really bad for you. And they say, I don't want to quit smoking. Do you get my point? So, what kind of hypnotherapy is going to work in that case? Come on. It would be silly and disrespectful to even attempt to work with that person. They don't want to change. And who are we to say that they should change? I think that's silly. I don't get involved in that. So let's talk about the things that we can do. Well, we can change what you want to change that has everything to do with you. That we can do. All right, what are some of those things? Well, you can change your finances, your prosperity level, because that has everything to do with you. You tell me, what about the world economy? What about the interest rates? What about the job market? That has nothing to do with me. I know that does not, but your prosperity level has everything to do with you. As you have seen, during any economic cycle, there are some people making a ton of money and prospering quite a bit. So, prosperity and your finances have everything to do with you, not with the world economy. In any economic climate, there are people making money and prospering. So, yes, you can change your finances with hypnosis. I've done a ton of that kind of work. Your health, your weight, particularly, the one who we control what goes into our mouths. We control how much we move around. We control our health to a very large extent. People say, yeah, but I don't control my genes. I know, but your genes don't control your weight entirely, because regardless of what genes you have, if we ate nothing, we wouldn't be overweight. All right. So I'm not suggesting eating nothing is a solution, but what I am illustrating here is that regardless of your genetic makeup, it's up to us to learn about our genetic makeup and compensate for it in such a way that we have the body that we want to have. In other words, your body figure, your shape, your fat level, your trim, how firm, how your body has a lot to do with you. Yes, we can change that, absolutely. Done that a bunch of times. What about your relationships? People tell me, no, you don't understand. It's my husband's fault. It's really my wife's fault. It's really my mother-in-law's fault. It's really my neighbor's fault. I get all that, and I'm not suggesting that those people do not have an influence in us, in our relationships. They do. But ultimately, the quality of our relationships do depend on us, right down to the fact that you could potentially choose not to be there. And I'm not suggesting that either. I'm just saying, to a large extent, I have the choice, right? So if this particular X, Y, or Z relationship is so toxic, ultimately, if I really think it's the other person's toxicity, I could potentially choose not to be there, and that's up to me. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that we break up all of our relationships either, because the truth is that it's not all about the other person, and we all acknowledge that. So the way we fix relationships is we start with us. Sometimes a couple will come in and they both want to change, and that's the optimum scenario. But sometimes that does not happen. Only one party is interested in changing, and they say, well, but if my husband doesn't come, there's no sense in me coming, or vice versa. And I say, absolutely not. We start with you, whoever it is that's calling. We start with you. And invariably, when the one party begins to change, the other party wants to engage in the process of change because they're seeing results. Now they want to be a part of that, right? So that's how we fix relationships, by taking responsibility for our part of the problem and fixing that. Okay. The other thing that we can do is burnout recovery. So a few people go through a process that we call burnout. We call that depletion sometimes, or a breakdown. Those are the different terms that people use. I have been there. I know what it feels like. I have worked with people before and after my burnout, and I can tell you that I'm 1,000% better at helping people now that I went through that experience, because I understand it, not just theoretically, but I've lived through it. And one of the things that happens when a person burns out is they do not believe they can change. Now, if you're not in that situation, you may not relate to what I'm saying. That's fine. But I'm telling you, when a person is in that situation, they don't believe it's possible to change. They feel too down deep. They feel too gone to come back. So it's very difficult, that kind of work. And it takes really specialized help, which, of course, I can provide, not only because I specialize in the process of change, but because I have personal experience with that experience, with that situation, with burnout. And the other thing that we do is I can help you overcome your addictions. Now, Before we talk about addictions, I got to tell you, I use the word addictions in this universe here, in this community, a little differently from the way other people use the word addiction, because I do not get into two topics. I don't get into whether or not it's right or wrong, whatever it is that you're doing. And I don't get into whether or not it's good for you or harmful to you. So the question of whatever you're doing being harmful to you or not is a scientific question, is a medical question. I don't get into that question. And the reason why I don't get into that question, and I used to when I was younger, is because the person who's addicted, see, the illness behind addiction is self deception. Every addict, and we're all addicts, by the way, to one thing or another. You might say, no, but I don't do any drugs, but you might work too much, and that might be your addiction, or pornography, or whatever the case is. But to one extent or another, we're all somewhat addicted to something, even if it's chocolate after dessert. There's always an element of a compulsion. There's something that we do that we wish we could stop, but we haven't quite stopped. That's part of human nature. So part of what keeps that addiction going is something that we call denial or self-deception. We lie to ourselves. It's like the person who smokes and convinces himself that smoking is not harmful to your health, because after all, he knows this one guy who was 252 years of age and smoked 22 packs of cigarettes an hour for all of his life and never died of lung cancer. In other words, so how are you going to argue with that person? I don't know if you know this guy, if this guy did smoke, we don't know. What we know is that scientifically smoking has been associated with a higher incidence of lung disease. But we're not going to get into that argument. If the person wants to smoke, they want to smoke. It doesn't matter to me if in other words, we're not going to try to convince you that something is harmful to you. One of the more popular addictions that we deal with at the office nowadays is pornography. And when a person calls, I work with less than half of the people who call for pornography because they want to get into a debate with me whether or not it's bad for you. I have nothing to say about that. I don't know. So again, I don't get into the debate whether the object of your addiction is bad for you. And I don't get into whether it's right or wrong because it's a moral issue, and I'll leave that to the theologian. What I do get into is, do you want to change? And have you tried to change that behavior and you find it to be difficult to keep on slipping? And if that's your case, I can definitely help you, because we're going to have to change your mind at the level of the subconscious so that you can quit doing whatever it is that you want to quit doing. But there's no need for you to try to use your therapist to convince yourself that whatever it is that you're doing is okay. And then eventually your therapist acquiesces and says, okay, fine, I guess it's okay. And then you go home and say, see, Dr. So-and-so said it's okay. That kind of thing is more of the same problem. If you think it's okay, it's okay. Don't consult with anybody. Keep on doing it. And, if you're an adult and you keep on doing whatever you do, and if you think it's good, it's all right. My part in your life is, if you think something is you want to change and you've tried to change and you haven't been able to, I'm your hypnotherapist. I'll help you change. Notice. So whatever it is in our world, in our definition, whatever it is that you want to change but haven't been able to, whatever it is, we call that an addiction. I don't care about the dictionary's definition for this purpose. For this purpose, an addiction is, I want to change, but I haven't been able to. That's an addiction. I can help you. All right. So we're going to be discussing how this whole thing works, how we can make this happen for you. But I just wanted to show you all of this so that you have a pretty clear understanding as to what it is that we can do. That's the biggest question. What can we do with all of this? We can change anything that you want to change and that it has to do with you. Okay? So if you are in a situation where there's something you want to change about yourself and haven't been able to, but it has to do with you, then I can help you do that. All right? Blessings to all of you. In the following video, I'm going to show you a few examples of what happens to people when they change their lives. You're going to be fascinated by this explanation. Click on the video on the next video. You're going to love this.